Hey everyone, good morning from me, good afternoon, good evening, wherever the sun is in the sky for you right now, and welcome back to another video. So today, you can see we are set up to do some colour mixing, and you also knew that from the title, I expect. But yeah, so I wanted to introduce to you what we're going to do today. So I've done colour mixing videos previously on mixing oranges and mixing violets, and I did them in two slightly different formats. And today I have yet a third different format for us, because when you look for colour mixing videos on YouTube for how to mix greens, there are so many comprehensive videos out there of very accomplished artists and art teachers, and they do a really good job of explaining like the fundamental color theory behind mixing greens. So I didn't want to just regurgitate what they've already said, and they've said it probably better than I could. So I wanted to showcase for you today 6 green color mixes that are, in my opinion, a little bit outside of the realm of your normal color mixes, or have relevance in some other way. Because everybody knows, you mix a phthalo blue and you mix a lemon yellow and you get a really bright green, and you mix an ultramarine and you mix a Hansa yellow deep and you get a more muted olivey toned green. I mean, it's fascinating and it's lovely to experiment with just for fun, but at this point it's not exactly thrilling and novel video content. Not that this will be necessarily, but at least I feel like I have some input on these specific mixes, and we can look at them together. I just made myself a cup of coffee. It's my second cup of coffee, but not the second cup of coffee I've drunk, just the second one I've made, because I screwed up the first one. Anybody else really clumsy? So I'm ready to go. I'm going to grab my Da Vinci Spin Synthetics #1 quill. I found it again. Last video I couldn't find it. Camera won't focus. There you go. And let's just jump right on into it. So I wrote down the colours I said I was going to mix with, because I am scatterbrained and will forget. So you can already see what I'm going to mix, but hopefully that just helps you out with a bit of a frame of reference. And I've zoomed you in a bit so you can see a little closer. And at the end, of course, I'll give you a close-up of the dried swatches, but you can also watch me mixing over here, which is pretty nice. So the first mix we're going to do is Phthalo Turquoise and Naples Yellow Deep, which is just here. This is PBR 24. And I was inspired by this mix by Roman Szmal's Ocean Blue. Oh, I should have also said, all of my paints that I'm mixing today are my Roman Szmal collection, which is just here. Yeah, they have a colour they call Ocean Blue, which is phthalo blue green shade mixed with Naples Yellow Deep PBR 24. And so I thought, what happens if we try and take it a little bit more in the green direction? Because what I love about Ocean Blue is how colour separating it is. So it really separates with the yellow pigment granulating out on the paper. And it's really quite stunning because there's not that many granulating yellow pigments in the world, but this Naples Yellow Deep is quite a bright one. So as you can see, we've mixed a sort of, I don't know, it's still quite blue actually, isn't it? But I think that that's always going to be the case, because of the nature of the pigments. Sometimes it can be quite hard. I realized when I was doing the testing for this video to tell when something is green, which sounds stupid, but really, because color is all relative to whatever is next to it, right? You see that's definitely more of a brighter green now. Leave it there. But yeah, when you don't have anything to compare it to, and especially when you can see that the two colors it mixed from were not the yellow and blue that you might expect, sometimes it can be hard to tell when you reach that green midpoint. You can see it separating on the palette. Wow, that's stunning. And so yeah, we'll see at the end that this, like it has on the palette, this yellow pigment will separate out into the crevices of the paper. I'm using the Clairefontaine gold line aqua pad like I was in my last video as well. Which is not, it's cellulose paper, it's nothing special, but it certainly is doing the job for these purposes. And you can see it separating already. It's absolutely stunning, and it's just a little bit different to the normal turquoise green that you might mix otherwise. Okay, so up next is Cobalt Teal. So Roman Szmal has, first of all, I just dropped a drop of water in there, that's amazing. Roman Szmal has two sort of cobalt teal colours. They have a cobalt teal and a cobalt sea blue, and the cobalt teal is PG50 cobalt green. Here it is in my signature palette, the one I use most often. And it's just a little bit greener than the sea blue, so I thought I would use this one for mixing greens. The other one makes wonderful violets. And I'm going to mix this with transparent pyrrole orange, which this is a hard balance to find, but I've done it before. So you wouldn't necessarily expect that this vibrant orange would mix a nice green, I don't think, with this cobalt teal. But in my experience, you can find a balance. Try not to waste so much of this pigment when you're colour mixing. It's so easy to to get so much pigment on your brush and have to wash it off. But yeah, look at this bright orange. But when it all mixes up, you get this nice sort of olivey green. I think I might need some more blue. That was not enough colour for this size of a swatch. And because of the cobalt teal's opacity, it sort of is a little bit milky, like almost like an earth green, which I think is frankly stunning. And this is going into a bit more of a browny green now, but that's okay, we'll get the whole range. I also think it's interesting people's colour perception differences. I've noticed in discussions with friends that I have trouble with the difference between red and orange. I seem to skew very orange when things are red. I'll say they're orange, but they're not. But you can see the difference between these two colours. First of all, you can already see the yellow pigment granulating out with the Naples Yellow Deep. And the cobalt teal is also a granulating colour, but I think that in a mix like this, it doesn't come out quite so, not nearly as much as the Naples Yellow Deep anyway. And you can see this is like sort of a soft khaki green, basically, which is absolutely lovely for I suppose for landscape painting, for distant hills where they're misty in the distance or something like this. But you can see it again separating on the palette. Amazing. I love mixing colours. I could spend a day doing this. Just as well I have a reason now. So let's move on to the next mix. So the next mix is Roman Szmal's Lavender, which is my favourite lavender that I've tried. And it is an unexpected mixer for greens, because while it does contain blue, it also contains quite a lot of white. So you'd expect that it would mix sort of pastel greens because it's a more opaque white leaning colour to begin with, but it does contain ultramarine blue in there. And what I've been doing is mixing it with this Aquarius yellow, which is a little bit of a warm, slightly warmer than a lemon yellow. And you can see that just about straight away you get this really interesting lime green when you mix more of the yellow than the lavender. And this is honestly a very pleasant spring green to me. Very different, and not quite as blindingly neon as you would get if you mixed a clearer blue. So I think that the white and the violet pigments in the lavender add another layer of interest, if you like, to these greens, where they're a little bit softer. They're not so harsh. If you mix the Aquarius yellow and a phthalo blue, you would get a much more vivid and saturated green. And despite this already being quite bright, I think that you would, this is much more approachable for me, at least. Somebody who's not like that in love with bright greens. So up next is this mixture of Prussian blue, and nickel azure yellow. And you might be like, Jules, but you said that you weren't going to do any traditional blue and yellow colour mixtures. Well, this one is showcased because I think that this mixture is as true to the historical Hooker's Green as you can get. So Hooker's Green was a mixture between genuine gamboge, which is made, I think, from a tree resin, and iron blue. Prussian blue is still the same pigment today, very much. And so we can still use the Prussian blue, but the closest that we have right now to genuine gamboge, I'll try and put a picture of genuine gamboge on the screen, because I think that nickel azure yellow is the closest. I know that there's a lot of paints have a lot of brands have a paint called New Gamboge. But like, first of all, look at this absolutely stunning green. Wow. I could drink that. But yeah, I think personally that the nickel azure yellow is the closest. Some people still have made genuine gamboge, so we can still compare. But this is just the most amazing green. It's bright, but it's not unnatural. And I think that it's just amazing. And the nickel azure yellow really has that glowy quality that we all love so much from nickel azure yellow. And if you mix it with a little bit more blue, you can take it in a bit more of a foresty sea green tone as well. And actually, Roman Szmal's Hooker's Green is this mixture, just pre-mixed for you. And I do enjoy having that as a convenience green, because it means that you can lean it either way, more blue, more yellow, depending on your application. And you already have the pigments in your palette, so it's absolutely no problem. I didn't mention it earlier, but the lavender is also granulating, so you can see a little bit of separation on the palette, but not so much on the paper. So moving on to our next mix, which is Phthalo Blue Green shade. If I can find it in this mess of blues. Look at these. I've got so many blues in here. I can never tell which one is the one I want. I think it's this one. Yeah, that's the one. Great. So it's Phthalo Blue Green shade plus Cypress Raw Umber Deep. So this is a mixture that I am making based off of the pigment composition information of Daniel Smith's Cascade Green, which is a very well-known convenience green mix. And it's this lovely sort of like deep foresty green. And I was curious to see if we could make something similar with the Phthalo Blue and the PBR7 that I have in my palette. And the answer is yes. Not sounding so convinced in this particular moment, but I swear we'll get there. This is already a kind of a green. Just need to get a little bit more of the Phthalo Blue is so strong, but at the same time you want a lot of it, because if it's a lighter colour, then it doesn't look as good. So you just got to try and balance it with the brown as much as possible. There you go. Now we're heading a bit more in the direction I was hoping. Yeah, so this is a lovely foresty green. It really is truly, like, there's no other way to describe it really. And every time I mix it, it looks a little bit different, of course. But the range of tones you can get is very good. I really love playing around with this mixture. And it's also a little bit granulating. I think the Cypress Raw Umber Deep is it's my coolest brown. That's why I'm using it. I'm pretty sure that they use like a German raw umber, like a green umber, probably for their Cascade Green, just to minimize the gap between the blue and the brown. But I don't have that, so we're working with what we've got. And this is amazing. This is like, if this one up here with the Cobalt teal and the pyrrole orange is like the distant hills, this is like the bushes in the foreground. So when this dries, we'll see, because it will lighten a little, as a watercolour tends to as it dries. We'll see what colour we get at the end. Sometimes it's not so easy to see. But in my test swatch, I actually added a little bit more brown still, I think, and it was quite a nice brown green, whereas I think this is leaning a little more blue. And then the final mix is one I was just doing as an experiment to see what would happen if you mix a more muted blue with a more muted yellow. So I was using this Cobalt Turquoise, which is PB36 from Szmal. It's a little bit of a weak pigment, a little bit tough to re-wet, but looks like a stunning turquoise colour. And then what I mixed it with is this Blue Ridge Raw Sienna, which is PY43. So not a PBR7 Raw Sienna, but a PY43 natural yellow iron oxide, I believe. And it's an interesting mixture. Like, it really is one of those mixtures which can be hard to pass visually. You're like, what color is this? Is it a sandy yellow brown? Is it a green? Is it a sea blue? If you had too much blue? Either way, it's a stunning color. I think this would be wonderful in like a coastal landscape. This is like possibly the closest to an earth green mixture that I've found. Not that you'd really want to mix green earth because it's such a cheap pigment to begin with, and the Cobalt Turquoise is not, but look at the separation. Wow. That's stunning. But you can see with some slightly unlikely combinations, the range of colours that we've managed to get here. I absolutely love this, and I have a lot more fun doing this, trying to get to green via some less well-trodden paths, and seeing what we can make of it, rather than just going for the obvious greens mixtures. Not that there's anything wrong with that at all, but just personally, as a colour nerd, I like messing around with this stuff. So here's the overview with everything, including all of these wonderful colour separating mixes on my palette. I'm going to let this all dry and then I'll be back to give you a close-up. Okay, paint has dried, so this is a close-up of what they look like. Overall, pretty happy with how this paper handled the washi tape, although we had a couple of little rips, but you know, it's just an experiment. So you can see this real separation of the yellow pigment with the Naples Yellow Deep. I think at a distance it still reads green, but obviously for smaller work, or you know, when you want a flatter green, maybe this isn't the best mix. The Cobalt Teal and the Transparent Pyrrole Orange is this lovely sort of pastel khaki green, which I really love. And then we have the more vibrant greens, this amazing lime green with the lavender and the Aquarius yellow. And then this hooker's green combination, the Prussian blue and the nickel azo. Love that as a basic green, absolutely my favourite. And then down here to the bottom, we've got the forest green, this sort of cascade green facsimile with the phthalo blue green shade and the raw umber. You could play around with different shades of brown to mix with the phthalo blue, try and get similar effects. And then finally, this sort of very granulating, very muted green, earth green kind of colour, Cobalt Turquoise and the Raw Sienna. Yeah, absolutely love all these greens. Thank you so much for joining me on this adventure. Hope you enjoyed these mixes. Let me know in the comments below what your favourite green mixer is. Green mixer? What your favourite green colour mixture is. And yeah, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye everyone. Like if you mixed a phthalo blue with the Aquarius yellow, you'd get like the most sickening hue of green.